All right, let's get into it. We tend to think of antibiotics as these straightforward lifesavers, right? But some are, well, they're a lot more complicated. Today, we're talking about one of the most powerful and, frankly, one of the most perilous antibiotics out there, clindamycin. This isn't just a drug, it's like a character in a medical drama, a hero with a really serious hidden flaw. And that's the big question for today, isn't it? What is it that pushes a drug from being a go-to solution to something we call a last resort? To really get that, we have to understand what makes clindamycin so uniquely special and also so uniquely risky. So think of it this way. Clindamycin isn't your family doctor that you see for a common cold. No, it's the highly trained specialist you only call in for the absolute most difficult cases. It's built for very specific, very tough jobs that most other antibiotics simply can't handle. So what is this stuff exactly? Well, technically, it's a semi-synthetic antibiotic from the Lincosamide family. All that means is it started out as a natural compound from a little bacterium found in soil, Streptomyces lincolnensis, and then scientists in a lab modified it to really crank up its power and make it more effective. And every specialist has a superpower, right? Well, clindamycin's is its really unique way of shutting down bacteria. It doesn't always go for the outright kill. Its method is a bit more subtle and honestly way more strategic than that. The key word you need to know here is bacteriostatic. Now, a lot of antibiotics are bactericidal. That means they kill bacteria directly. Clindamycin, on the other hand, just stops them from multiplying. It essentially puts the infection on pause, which gives your own immune system a fighting chance to come in and clear out the bad guys. And this is how it works. It's actually pretty brilliant. Imagine the bacterium has this little factory inside, its ribosome, that's constantly making all the proteins it needs to survive and, more importantly, to multiply. Clindamycin gets in there, finds the main assembly line, and just gums up the works. Bam! No new proteins means no new bacteria. The entire enemy operation just grinds to a halt. Now, this superpower is incredibly effective, but it has a true specialty. It's most powerful against a very specific kind of bacteria, the ones that absolutely thrive where there's no oxygen. We call these anaerobic bacteria, and these are the culprits behind some of the absolute nastiest infections. They love to hide out deep inside the body, in places like abscesses or bone, where oxygen is low and a lot of other antibiotics just can't get to them. This is clindamycin's home turf. But it's not just that it's good against anaerobes, it also has this genius delivery system. Get this, it actually gets picked up by our own immune cells, which then carry it directly to the site of the infection. It's literally like a Trojan horse, delivering a secret weapon right past the enemy's defenses. And this delivery method lets clindamycin do something pretty remarkable. It gets deep tissue penetration. It can build up in high concentrations in places other drugs just can't touch. We're talking deep inside bone to fight osteomyelitis, right into the pus of an abscess, and it can even get into bacterial biofilms, that slimy shield that bacteria create to protect themselves. So with these unique abilities, you can start to see why it's kept in reserve for only the toughest missions. When doctors are up against a deep, complicated, and really dangerous infection, clindamycin is often the specialist that gets the call. And here are just some of those missions. We're talking deep skin infections, bone and joint infections that are notoriously difficult to treat, abscesses hiding deep inside the abdomen, and even necrotizing fasciitis. You might know it as flesh-eating disease. Yeah, these are not your everyday infections. But here's another superpower. On top of just stopping the bacteria from growing, clindamycin also stops them from producing toxins. And in diseases like toxic shock syndrome, it's actually the toxins that do the most damage. So clindamycin doesn't just halt the invading army, it shuts down their entire weapons factory, which can be an absolutely life-saving move. And this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Because for all of its incredible strengths, this heroic antibiotic has a profound and potentially fatal flaw. You know what they say, every hero has a weakness. Well, clindamycin's is a big one. So what's the catch, right? Why isn't this amazing drug our first choice for everything? Why all the hesitation? The answer lies in our gut. While clindamycin is off fighting the dangerous invaders, it doesn't really discriminate. It also wages war on the huge community of beneficial bacteria that live in our intestines, causing a massive, dangerous disruption to that whole delicate ecosystem.
And when all the good bacteria are wiped out, an opportunistic villain is just waiting to take over. Meet Clostridium difficile, or C. diff for short. This is a bacterium that's often just hanging around in small, harmless amounts, kept in check by all the normal gut flora. But when its competition is gone, C. diff seizes its chance to grow completely out of control. And this is the devastating chain of events that follows. First, clindamycin clears the way. Then, C. diff multiplies like crazy. And finally, it starts pumping out toxins that attack the lining of the colon, causing a severe and sometimes deadly inflammation. And clindamycin is one of the biggest known culprits for causing this to happen. And it is so important to understand the difference here. Look, lots of antibiotics can cause some stomach upset, a little nausea, maybe some mild diarrhea. But what we are talking about with C. diff is on a completely different planet. This isn't just a side effect, it's a potentially life-threatening medical emergency. So that brings us to the final verdict. How on earth do doctors and clinicians weigh this incredible power against such a significant risk? It all comes down to a very careful, very critical balancing act. And here's the balance sheet, plain and simple. On one side, you've got its amazing ability to fight anaerobes, get into deep tissues, and shut down toxins. But on the other side, you had that huge, formidable, high risk of causing C. diff colitis, not to mention other side effects. And that C. diff risk is always, always the #1 consideration. Which all boils down to a pretty simple conclusion. Clindamycin is a reserved tool. It is not, and it should not be, a first-line antibiotic for simple infections. It's kept on the shelf, saved for those specific, serious situations where its unique benefits are truly judged to be worth that enormous gamble. And that leaves us with a much bigger question, one that goes way beyond just this one drug. Clindamycin is really a perfect case study for a central dilemma in all of medicine. How do we, as both patients and doctors, decide when a powerful cure is actually worth the risk it carries? It's a calculation that's made every single day in hospitals around the world, and the stakes just couldn't be any higher.